Hey everybody, this is Peter with Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today we're going to be taking a look at Cthulhu Awakens. This is one of the newest releases from Green Ronin, and a quick thank you to Green Ronin for sending us a copy of the PDF of this game so that we could take a look at it, review it, and then get back with you all and let you know what it's about and see if it's a game maybe that you would like to have at your table for you and your players. So, as the subtitle of Cthulhu Awakens states, it's age system mythos role-playing across the weird century. So let's break that little bit down. Age system means that Green Ronin is once again using kind of their core mechanics of their age system, which they've used in Fantasy Age and Modern Age. The mythos, we're getting into the whole Cthulhu mythos and what all that entails. We're going to be playing a role-playing game across the weird century, and across the weird century is a specific period of time that Green Ronin has chosen to kind of pinpoint for this game, and it's supposed to be taking place between like the 1920s through present day, so around the 2020s. So it's this very interesting broad expanse of time that they're going to be having the game masters set the game of Cthulhu Awakens. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and go to the second page of the PDF, which is actually the back of the hardcover book, and we're going to use a little bit of zooming in magic here, and we'll pull it up and I will read the back of this book to you so you get a little bit of a better understanding of what is going to be in this book. A Century of Nightmares. Cthulhu Awakens brings cosmic horror and the Cthulhu mythos from the unimaginable past through the 1920s and into the 21st century. Delve into the secrets in the Roaring Twenties a century ago, then track aliens and cults through wars, the broken atom, and the rise of digital and genetic technologies. Crack open ancient tomes under antique lamplight or under the harsh glow of your smartphone in the here and now. Contend with Deep One cults, Yithian agents, and horrific revelations that can be found anywhere from the back streets of Arkham to vast underground realms and even dreams. Cthulhu Awakens synthesizes, reimagines, and expands the Cthulhu mythos into a setting specifically designed for inclusive role-playing. Cthulhu Awakens uses the Age system, the same one that powers games such as Fantasy Age, Modern Age, Blue Rose, and The Expanse. Open this book of secrets and discover the following. A complete horror and weird adventure game for the adventure game engine, an easy-to-learn system with over a decade of development behind it, a setting that evolves the Cthulhu mythos into a universe designed for games set throughout the 20th and 21st centuries, a world that tears away the biases of its source material to support a wider variety of protagonists and the secrets behind unreliable sources, the threat of alienation where horror inspires dangerous revelations, bonds that give your characters beliefs and relationships power, a stunt system that punctuates success with drama, whether because of your character's uncanny ability or because the creatures and cultists who oppose you attain some dark victory, eldritch workings that break the boundaries between science and magic, anyone can cast them if they're willing to learn the lore and pay the price, psychic powers, strange artifacts, and mystic tomes, a collection of non-player characters and mythos horrors from hard-bitten private eyes to sorcerers, shoggoths, and the tendril from beyond, 2 adventures, one set in the 1930s and one in the modern day. Cthulhu Awakens is a complete game, but it is substantially compatible with other Age games. All you need is 3 six-sided dice, writing materials, and friends ready for weird stories. Alright, so that right there, that little bit of information might already be enough for some of you to make up your mind. Maybe you know that you love the Age system by Green Ronin, and you enjoy or thoroughly love the Cthulhu mythos, so all of a sudden you have decided, this is it, I'm good, I know that I want to play this game. Then good on you, head on over to Green Ronin Publishing's webpage, pick up your copy of the hardcover or maybe the PDF or both, and I'm excited for you. But for those of you who still aren't quite sure, let's keep on going along. So the next couple of pages are the table of contents, and it shows us that the book itself is broken down into 9 chapters, as well as then the 2 scenarios that you can run for you and your players. At the very beginning of the book, though, we do have an introduction, which gives us kind of the mission behind this version of the Cthulhu mythos, this version that Green Ronin is bringing to the players. And it also gets into the weird century, the idea of the time frame in which this game is taking place. And then it ends with a glossary. So it's a few pages of just terms that are going to come up throughout this book that might need some explanation before the game master or the players get into the rest of the book, because there's a lot of things in here that you may or not be used to if you are a Cthulhu person. So they wanted to make sure to provide that very early in the book. So the next 4 chapters in the book have a header over it called Seekers, and so we're getting into the information that the players and the game masters are going to need for actually running the game. And chapter 1 gets into a lot of really, really deep lore. There's so much in here. We're not going to get into it in this video, but it talks about the gods that are going to be out there, these creatures that are horrific, and then the realms in which they come from and the realm in which we are playing here. So Earth, Our Mote of Dust is a really cool few pages about pre-human history, and then the human history that we know as well. And then it gets into the last portion of chapter 1, the weird century. And again, this is that time period spanning between the 1920s to the 2020s to current time as of the making of this video. And so they want to give you kind of how our history lines up with the Cthulhu mythos, making it the weird century, which is pretty interesting. Lots of really great art throughout this. Then we get into chapter 2, Against the Mythos, and this is going to be the chapter that's all about making your characters. Chapter 3 gets into the basic rules of the game. If you've played the one of the other age system games before, this is going to look very familiar to you. If not, we're going to go over it real quick as we go ahead and continue through the book. And then chapter 4 gets into some of the very specific stunts that players can do while playing in the game, as well as the idea of alienation and fortune. And we'll try to talk a little bit more about alienation and fortune being an optional rule for the game, just because those are 2 of the newer things other than lore specifically for this game. So we'll make sure to kind of focus in on those a little bit more. So after chapter 4, we get our next big header, and it is Revelations, and that leads into chapter 5, Fools Call It Magic. So this is a chapter that is all about how, air quotes, magic works here in Cthulhu Awakens. It is called Eldritch Workings here, and it gets into how do the players study it, learn it, and cast it. It's kind of a very new system for specifically this game, and so it's definitely something that the players who are interested in learning how diving into the eldritch workings of this Cthulhu mythos is going to work for their character, but also against their character. So very interesting chapter for players there. And then chapter 6 gets into Sinister Treasures. That is just the equipment that your players are going to be interacting with, weapons, armor, and such, as well as then artifacts and some of the dangerous texts that they might run across while playing this game. Now, the last big section here has a header of secrets, and that is because this is getting more into the information specific to the game master. We get even more in depth into some of the outsiders, these creatures and beings that are going to be fighting or giving your player characters a hard time. It also gets into information again about the mythos itself. They do focus a little bit here in this section on Lovecraft and the problems with some of the discrimination that happens in the original Cthulhu mythos. Now, it's not going to be, the goal is that is not baked into this game. They have tried their best to create a game here that is inclusive, and given you ways to do that, but they also didn't want to totally ignore the problematic portions of the Cthulhu legendarium. And so they do take some time in here to go over some of that for the Game Master and ways to either use that safely in the game or remove it from the game as best as possible. And I always appreciate that. I think that's a great way to try to handle this. And I think Green Ronin is doing a good job of providing a game that is going to be more accessible to people who have in the past seen themselves kind of either left out or just straight up, let's just say it, dehumanized in the Cthulhu mythos. So that's hopefully, again, not going to be in this game, but Green Ronin's doing their best to talk about it, to discuss it, and to move beyond it to making a game that's inclusive for everyone. Chapter 9 gets more into the statistics for the entities that your players are going to be coming up against. And then the last part, like we said earlier, of the book is the two tales from the Weird Century, which is going to be an adventure taking place in 1934, and then another one taking place in the 2020s. All right, so now that we've taken a look at the table of contents, let's go ahead and move on to the introduction. And before we get there, though, I wanted to take a quick stop because I love this piece of art. It's really awesome. It's like a nice pulp fiction book cover, and I'm a big fan of it, so I just wanted to take that quick moment there to point that out. Now, we get into the introduction where we're going to talk a little bit about some of the prehistory of the world. It's mostly a bunch of lore stuff, but right here at the beginning, we have what is a role-playing game. We can skip that. Most of us here know what a role-playing game is, and most of the time, I find these kind of boilerplate, just explaining what the genre is. But I did want to take a moment to very quickly zoom in on the next part, which is what is Cthulhu Awakens. I think they do a great job of boiling down for us what this game is all about and their heart behind the game, the mission of it. And so I want to go ahead and zoom in on that, and I'm going to read a few portions of it. So let's go ahead and do that right now. In Cthulhu Awakens, characters investigate and confront the Cthulhu mythos manifested through cultist artifacts, creatures, phenomena, and ultimately the outsiders, alien gods whose unknowable motives destroy minds and ravage worlds. This is not the first role-playing game to focus on the mythos, but it is designed to be your first game, though psyche-scarred fans of others are more than welcome. Cthulhu Awakens embraces the kind of inclusivity Lovecraft, a notable racist, would have despised. Like generations of other creators playing with the mythos, we've made changes to fit our creative goals, and we expect you to do the same. This is a necessary step. Much of the source material contains deeply flawed ideas, such as when some of the old stories take antique or offensive ideas as fact. For instance, the idea that a people can degenerate through poverty or by not living like a stereotypical white American is a theme in these works that has no basis in fact and exists to promote cultural chauvinism. The only things to do are either to ignore it or to use the dynamic that created it against itself, so that a story portraying a culture as inferior becomes one about how racist, colonialist assumptions shape the perspectives of those able to take advantage of them, which might lead foolish, arrogant adherents to their doom. Beyond eliminating terrible notions, deconstructing the canon frees us to optimize the setting for role-playing games. This means we've created new organizations and ideas designed to foster group investigations. Our mythos features employees of the Carter West Agency, hardscrabble students from Misty Valley Junior College, and history-influencing Yithian spies who guide the world toward the apocalypse they foresee. Cthulhu Awakens isn't about role-playing in a world controlled by other writers. It isn't an homage. We've made the mythos our own as a setting for role-playing tales where everyone is welcome, and we encourage you to do the same. So thanks for letting me go ahead and zoom in there a little bit and read straight from the book for a moment, because I think reading their words gives you as the potential player or game master of this game a better understanding of what kind of game they're trying to make and the the levels that they went to do their best to decouple this setting, this game, from the wrong racist ideas that showed up quite often in some of Lovecraft's works. And so I was very pleased to see that they were doing their best to separate those things from this game. And if, like they said, if they show up in the game, how do you make those turn on their head, which I think is a great idea. Now, the next part I did want to take a quick look at here in the introduction is just this idea of what they call alienation. And this is along the same lines of what we just read a second ago, but the idea here is that in the Cthulhu mythos, madness shows up quite a lot. In a lot of games that I've played about the Cthulhu mythos, they talk about your characters gaining insanity or going crazy or becoming mad. And again, we live in a world where we understand these things as mental illnesses, and we don't want to be disrespectful to other people who may have gone through these things or seen family members go through them. And so here they discuss the idea of alienation, and that is when humans come in contact with these outsiders, these Cthulhu mythos gods. We are no longer calling this madness or going crazy or going insane. The idea here is we're talking about how these effects of being around these creatures affect the psyche of the players. And so the things that they start to think, they're not irrational thoughts, and they're not delusional. They're insights. They're uncanny insights into these creatures, and our human brains just aren't meant to hold those. And so again, we're moving away from some vocabulary into another realm, trying to make this game more accessible to more people. And I think that is a fantastic idea, and I'm really glad that they made those steps. And like I said, we do have a glossary here full of a ton of words here. It's multiple pages just describing some of the words that are going to show up throughout the game. All right, so now that we have looked through a little bit of the introduction there, I think we better understand exactly what kind of game Green Ronin is trying to make here. They want to make a game that is a cosmic horror game with the Cthulhu mythos setting, but they want a game that is inclusive for everyone, for old players and new players alike, and I think that's fantastic. Now that we know that, though, we're going to go ahead and open up our bookmarks in our PDF, which again is one of the main reasons I love PDFs. I love being able to quickly get to the different chapters, finding what it is that I need. And we're going to quickly go through a few of the things that I just wanted to mention again about how the game is played and give you that quick overview. So Chapter 1 is the Uncaring Cosmos, and this is the lore dump for players and game masters. So if you're going to be a player for this game, Chapter 1 is absolutely still for you. It's going to give you a better understanding of the world of the Cthulhu mythos, the different types of unknowable creatures that you might be coming up against, and some of the people, human and non, that you may be interacting with throughout this game. Chapter 2, Against the Mythos, is going to talk to you about creating your characters. So with the age system, it's pretty similar to all the other games that they've done, which is you're coming up with a concept for your character, like in most role-playing games. You're determining your ability scores, you're figuring out your background for your character and the profession that they're coming from, what drives them, what's the motivating factor for your character, the resources and equipment that they're going to be using, as well as the traits that they have, the bonds that they have with the other characters, and then a name and a quick description of the character. And you'll be doing all of that through here in Chapter 2. Now, the basic rules of the game, there's going to be different types of encounters. You're going to have action encounters where you're going to include combat. A lot of people, when they think about role-playing games, combat is kind of where they focus. It's where we roll the dice the most. But there's also exploration encounters and social encounters where you're diving into your investigation of the mystery that you're involved in. and the social encounters where you talk to other NPCs in the game and figure out what's going on. Now, the core system is all about tests. So whenever you're trying to do something in this game, you're going to have to make a test, and your game master is going to get you ready for that. And in this game, you just need 3d6, with one of them being somehow stand out. It needs to be different, whether it's in color or shape, whatever it is that differentiates it from your other 2d6. That's going to be your stunt die. So when you make a test, you're going to roll these 3d6, and then you'll add any ability and focus that your game master says is relevant to that test. And then you're going to add that total number together, and that test result is then put up against the target number for the test. And the target number is set by the game master. And as long as you meet or exceed that target number, you have succeeded on your test. Now, the stunt die is interesting because it is going to help determine degrees of success. The higher the number on your stunt die, the better you might succeed at the thing you're trying to do, as well as if on any of the 3 dice you have the same number. So if 2 of the dice are 1 or 2 of the dice are 2, then that stunt die is also going to create or generate stunt points, which you can use to do really cool maneuvers. And these things are happening mostly then in combat. So stunt points give you a whole list of things that you are able to do dependent on what it is that you're trying to do for your test. So there's also opposed rolls, and again, same thing, you're rolling the 3d6, you're adding your ability and your focus, and then the game master is rolling for the NPC that you are probably more than likely fighting or trying to overcome in some way, and whoever rolls the highest total result wins the opposed roll. The rest of Chapter 3 gets into more of the basic rules of the game, and then Chapter 4 is all about stunts. It gets into all of the different stunts that you as your player can utilize throughout the game. There's general stunts, there's combat stunts, chase, vehicle combat, exploration, social. They have stunts for just about everything that you could possibly think of, and there's some really cool things that you can do. I like the idea of stunts. It's probably one of my favorite portions of the age system. I think they do a really great job of coming up with some pretty interesting things for you as the player to do. But then, of course, there's always the idea of you working with your game master to possibly create some stunts that you think would be cool to add to the game as well. And so that's here in Chapter 4. Now, the next 2 things that we're going to talk about are also in Chapter 4, and that's the idea of alienation and fortune. And again, fortune being an optional rule of the game. The game describes terror and enlightenment as 2 pillars of alienation. Terror represents the hold the mythos has over your mind to the point where it overrides your conscious actions and distorts your perceptions as your mind adapts to the unthinkable reality before you. And enlightenment stands for the short-lived fruits of that adaptation. In your horror, you understand something about the strangeness before you, and it might even be enough to help you turn the tables on it. So like the other bonds in the game, you're going to be using your terror and enlightenment to fuel different stunts in the game itself, and there is a whole list of terror stunts that you'll be able to do as you accumulate these terror points and enlightenment stunts that you can do with your enlightenment points. Now, terror is also going to be utilized by the game master against the players, and enlightenment will be used by the players as well. So lots of really cool stuff happening here through this idea of alienation and these alienation tests that are changing your characters, distorting the way that they're seeing the world, but then also enlightening them to what is actually going on in the world around them that most humans would never have any idea. And so I really like the idea of alienation, and I think it's going to add a really cool dramatic touch to the game. It actually reminds me a little bit of some of the other games I've been playing recently, where there's kind of this risk reward thing that's happening, where even though you've failed something, you gain an ability from it, and that ability can either eventually help you or also be detrimental. The main thing I'm thinking of is the game Alien right now, where you accrue stress dice, and so you get more and more dice that you can utilize, so you can hopefully have more successes, but it also increases the chance that you'll have more failures. And so it's a little bit like that. At least that's what it makes me feel, or it makes me think of when I'm reading this. So that's pretty much everything I really wanted to focus on in this video. Obviously, we're only about halfway through the book here, and there's tons more stuff. We didn't even get into Chapter 5, which talks about Eldritch workings and the way that your players are going to be interacting with those. We didn't get into Chapter 6, which is all the different types of equipment that the players are going to be playing with as well. And then we have Chapters 7, 8, and 9, which are really for the game master as they're getting to know the mythos and the way to run the game, as well as the entities that the players will be coming up against. So we didn't get into all of that, but I wanted to focus on those first early chapters in the book because I think it gives us the best understanding of what type of game Green Ronin is wanting to provide their fans. And again, that is a game that is in some way flipping the mythos on its head, making it more inclusive for more people to play the game. And I wanted to get into the basic rules of the game, and then also how this game changes or adds to some of the basic rules of the age system, specifically the alienation tests. So I hope this video has helped you to understand more about what it is, like I said, that Green Ronin wants this game to be. I hope it's helped you decide if this is a game that you either want to look further into or if this is a game you want to get. And thank you for watching, everybody. I hope it helped. And if it did, you can head on over to Green Ronin's website and check them out. You can head over to our website at tabletopgamingguild.com as well. And stick around here on our YouTube channel. Check out some of the other great videos that we're putting out on a regular basis. But until we talk again, everybody, keep on playing games.